Trump campaign proposes 10 questions for Kamala's first interview since taking over the Democratic nomination for president. It's no coincidence that Kamala's first interview is scheduled for the Thursday night before Labor Day weekend. They already hope it gets lost, and it hasn't even aired yet. And I will confirm this, having worked in marketing. Dude, Thursday night before the Labor Day weekend, you know what everyone's doing right now? They're packing. They're not watching the interview. Tomorrow, I know this because we're packing. Tomorrow, they're going to be sitting there staring at their watch, waiting for the day to end so they can get in their car and try and beat traffic because it's Labor Day weekend and they're going to be getting out of here.
TSA was predicting today is the busiest travel day of the year.
Whoa, you hear that?
Yeah, that's because you're supposed to be focusing on work.
Ian, what are you doing with this thunder? We're in the middle of recording.
I need a channel if you guys want me to part the clouds.
I thought you would come prepared for work.
But I might not be very social.
Did that lightning strike, that had to have been really close to us. Did that pick up on the show? Because Ian can control the weather, and he was talking about lightning crashing, and now here we are. Well, Ian, you gotta knock it off.
You mentioned Labor Day and how people are actually treating it like leisure day, and I'm like, yo, that day is supposed to be about work and focus, and all these people trying to dip out and get out of town is like, what is it? It's not leisure, you know?
The truth is Ian can't control the weather. I actually checked the forecast a couple days ago, and they predicted thunderstorms tonight, so we prepared for it.
I kind of want the rain now because I think the
happen.
plants need it. I've been looking around at the greenery, and it's like, I can get it away if you want.
Anyway, let's talk about the questions that Trump's asking. The first is, if you are capable of lowering prices for Americans, why haven't you done it in the 3.5 years you've been in office? You say housing affordability would be a day one priority. Why isn't it a priority now? These are funny questions. You co-sponsored Medicare for All and the Green New Deal. Do you still support these multi-trillion-dollar takeovers of the American economy? And there's a handful of other ones that are particularly good. But I got to be honest, we all know these questions will not be asked. I mean, maybe, why did you conceal Joe Biden's cognitive decline from the American people? Why did she?
They all did. It's also just part of the shared consciousness of joy. It was this weird, creepy, almost cult-like, to use a word they often throw at Trump supporters, cult-like, the leader is fine, everything will be fine. Pete Buttigieg was my favorite. Literally 2 days before Biden dropped out, he was on Bill Maher's show talking about how Joe Biden was great. Oh, maybe he had a bad debate, and yeah, he's old, but he's incredible. He's absolutely, not only is he incredible, he's better than people who are in their 30s and 40s. He's just sharper than everybody. And yeah, it's something they do collectively, and then they gave each other permission to change their minds overnight, and that's what happened. But my question for Kamala Harris would be, what is the achievement you are proudest of? What's your biggest accomplishment? Which is not a gotcha question, right? That's a friendly question. There's no answer because she hasn't actually achieved anything except getting elected. And I asked Democrats very casually and in a friendly way at the convention, what's her greatest accomplishment? And they could not answer it.
That's a great question.
It is a great question, in part because I think Harris is trying to distance herself really rapidly from Biden, which that's whose name she's been hanging out with for the last 3 years. So she should, she could hypothetically say, oh, the things that we have done this past year for, I don't know, whatever, small businesses in America, for LGBTQ rights. I'm very proud of my abortion tour. But all of that would be tied to the Biden-Harris campaign, which she doesn't want to be part of. I saw a clip of an interview that someone did with Ben Stiller, the actor, where he was saying he was excited about Harris because it's time for a change. You realize she's currently in the White House, yes?
These people don't pay attention to anything. But, my response with the question, because I hear it get asked a lot, what is Kamala Harris' greatest accomplishment? You'd think for someone who's been VP for 3.5 years, she'd have done something. She has done things. She does have accomplishments. She cast the tie-breaking vote for the Inflation Reduction Act, which failed, and prices have gotten worse, which she complains about and says she wants to fix. But she has accomplished just that. So the important thing is, if people actually knew what our accomplishments were, in fact, I recommend this to, to Elad or to James Klug. You guys are on the street. You ask someone, what do you think are some of Kamala Harris's greatest accomplishments as vice president over the past several years? And when they say, oh, I don't know, I'm not sure, say, what about casting the tie-breaking vote for the Inflation Reduction Act? That was a good one, right? And they'll go, yeah, that was good. And it resulted in higher prices and more inflation. And now the cost of food is up, rent is up, and everything's worse. And that's what she did. That's her accomplishment. Why vote for someone like that?
What, with the Inflation Reduction Act, led to, I'm not familiar with the act, what happened in it that caused inflation to go up?
Well, there were a couple of things. She also cast a tie-breaking vote for the America Rescue Plan, which was the initial massive spending that Biden added on top of the spending that hadn't yet gone out the door from the Trump administration. So in my view, and other people, including economists, share this view. That was what really kicked off the inflationary spiral. And then the Inflation Reduction Act was deliberately misnamed. It was
mass spending.
Yeah, it was more spending on the Green New Deal. It was massive spending, and that made inflation worse. It did not bring inflation down. The inflation rate slowed, but that's because the Fed had jacked up the interest rates, which we're all now living with. And yeah, she cast a lot of tie-breaking votes. She had a 50-50 Senate, basically, for a lot of the time she's been vice president. So she had more opportunities to cast tie-breaking votes. But she cast the tie-breaking vote for a lot of bad things. So if you list those things, right, and she's proud of them. As she says, she's proud of them, but they did bad things.
So the Inflation Reduction Act, which is cleverly named like most bills, was basically just a government spending package. It had some tax reforms, and it certainly did not do anything to reduce inflation. Costs went up right afterwards. I would say that the bill literally has nothing to do with inflation at all. It was literally, we want to spend a bunch of money on a bunch of different programs. We want to invest in clean energy. Green New Deal is a large component of it. It was a backdoor. And then they call it something that sounds good, like the Patriot Act. Everybody supports it. And then you hear in the news, Kamala Harris supported the Inflation Reduction Act. And as president, she will work to reduce prices. And that's exactly what they're going to do. And it's like saying, Donkey Kong kidnapped imagine Donkey Kong kidnaps the princess, but once he's elected, he'll let her go. That's basically what they're saying. She did it, but vote for her and she'll undo it. It's more like a hostage situation than an actual policy.
I do feel like a hostage in this economy. It's really bad.
Yeah. Well, the crazy thing is that they had all this spending on Green New Deal type things. They had $7.5 billion for 500,000 electric vehicle charging stations, and they built 8.
What happened
in 3 years? Because when Democrats build stuff, they go through all the government agencies that have to approve everything and do the environmental impact statements and do this and that. Then they have to go through all the interest groups that have to get a piece of the action. So they've got to work through the right unions, and they've got to work through the contractors who gave the donations to the right people. So there's like this cascade, and the money goes through it. And by the time you actually get to when the project's supposed to be built, there's no money left. The plans haven't been approved, and you have to go back to Congress for more money. That's basically how Democrats run California, and that's how it works in Washington now. Whereas Trump is like, I need to get something done. I don't care what the rules are. We're getting it done. I'm finding the right person to do it, and we're doing it. I actually think, and I say it in the book, that if you want to build the EV stations, have Trump do it, because he'll take the money and he'll find a way to do it. The way he did with the Jerusalem embassy. They told him it's going to cost $2 billion in 4 years to build, and he's like, well, forget that. Let's just take an existing building, repurpose it. We're done. Embassy. Just get it done.
One of the components of the Inflation Reduction Act was hiring 87,000 new IRS agents.
Right.
One of the ideas for reducing inflation was to take money from people. Not kidding. They were trying to bring prices down by taking more money from people, raising taxes in various areas. While Kamala Harris, she had a rally today, and she's like, I'm going to reduce taxes for 100 million people, blah, blah, blah. Listen, okay? 87,000 IRS agents are not needed to go after 100 billionaires or 10,000 millionaires. Here's the problem. Let's say you want to raise $1 million. What's easier? Send 1 million letters out automatically through, you click a button and it just prints and then sends them out, demanding $1 from each person, or going to one multimillionaire and saying, you owe me $1 million. That multimillionaire is going to be like, sure, let me call my lawyer and then get back to me in a year after we go to court over it. But you send a bill to a regular working class Joe, it says you owe us $1. He's going to be like, oh, okay, I guess. Granted, it's worse than that. They want to raise $100 million, which means they're not going to go to a billionaire and say you owe us $100 million, because Bezos or Musk is easily going to say, let me call my lawyer. I promised my legal firm $2 million. They're going to get this bill tossed out, and they're going to make it so bad for you, it's not worth pursuing. Or they can go, I don't know, let's send 1 million people a demand letter for $100. Ain't no working class Joe is going to hire a lawyer to stop the $100. And they're going to sit there and they're going to be stressed out and they're going to be sweating bullets, being like, I don't understand why I owe this money. What do I do? I don't have it. We're living paycheck to paycheck. Doesn't matter. That's how they rip the money from the economy. These people are bad. They are bad people. Kamala Harris is lying. Okay. I certainly think that she won't get asked any of these real questions, though.
Was the EV charging station, I'm going to call it a scam because it hasn't played out. Was that part of the Green New Deal or part of the Inflation Reduction Act?
That was part of the bipartisan infrastructure bill. And
bipartisan.
Right. What's funny about the bipartisan part is that the bill was like $1.2 trillion, I think. And when Trump suggested as he came into office that they should spend $1 trillion on infrastructure. Mitch McConnell was like, no, that's never passing. I'm never passing a $1 trillion infrastructure bill. You got to be crazy. And then, of course, when Biden came into office, they did a 1.2 or whatever it was $trillion infrastructure
Turned out
bill.
McConnell meant that was too little money. He wanted to spend more than that.
He just wouldn't give Trump a win for anything. So they have this infrastructure bill. And the irony is that what's happened is at first this was supposed to be a way of phasing out the fossil fuel industry. But then the fossil fuel industry, being smart, got their lobbyists together. And now they are trying to get a piece of that $7.5 billion and saying, well, why don't you just build the EV stations at our existing gas stations? So they're now going to get heavily subsidized by this spending that was meant to replace them. I don't have a problem with it because I think we should have both options. I think drivers should have as many options as possible. But that's what happens in Washington. So all these interest groups play this game, and the money just never goes to what it's supposed to unless you have someone like Trump whose whole mode of being is to cut through all this and just get stuff done.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.